I was working the front desk at a hostel in Melbourne when an American woman in her 30s walked up, dragging a massive suitcase. She looked exhausted. It was about 9 p.m. on a Thursday. She handed me her passport and said, "Thank God I made it." That flight from LA was brutal. I nodded and started checking her in. Then she asked, "So, what time does it get dark here?" I looked at her. Then I looked at the window. It was pitch black outside. "It's already dark," I said. She blinked. "Wait, what?" "But it's only 9 p.m. "Right," I said slowly. "In winter, the sun sets around 5:30. She stared at me like I'd just told her the sky was green. "But it's summer in America right now." "Yeah," I said. "And it's winter here, Southern Hemisphere." She went completely silent. Then she said, "Oh my God, I didn't pack a single warm thing." She hadn't. She had shorts and tank tops. In June, in Melbourne. That same week, I watched an American guy at a cafe try to order coffee. He said, "I'll have a regular coffee, medium with room for cream." The barista just stared at him. "You want a flat white? Long black? Cappuccino?" The guy got frustrated. "No, just regular coffee. You know, normal coffee." The barista tried again. "Mate, we don't really do drip coffee here." The American looked genuinely confused, like the barista was speaking another language. He ended up leaving without ordering anything. Then there was the couple at the pharmacy. American tourists, probably in their 50s. The husband needed cold medicine. The pharmacist asked to see his passport. He laughed. "Why would you need my passport?" "I'm just buying Sudafed." The pharmacist explained that pseudoephedrine is a controlled substance here. "You need ID, and they record the purchase." The guy got defensive. "This is ridiculous. In America, I can buy this anywhere." His wife pulled him away before it escalated. They left empty-handed. My favorite was the university student who showed up to his first day of classes in Sydney. American exchange student, maybe 20 years old. He walked into the lecture hall wearing a university hoodie. Not just any hoodie. A University of Sydney hoodie he'd bought online before arriving. He thought it would help him fit in. Problem was, Australians don't really wear university merch. It's mostly an American thing. Every single Australian. Student clocked him immediately as the foreign kid trying too hard. He realized it by lunchtime and never wore it again. But that was just the beginning. Because once you start noticing these moments, you realize they happen constantly. Americans arrive in Australia thinking it'll be easy. English-speaking country, right? Western culture, similar enough. Then reality hits, and it hits hard. I was working as a tour guide in Cairns when I met David, American guy, early 40s, on a business trip. He'd added a few days to explore the rainforest. Smart guy. Worked in tech. Seemed worldly. During the safety briefing, I mentioned being careful about snakes and spiders. David laughed. "Come on, how dangerous can they really be?" I showed him photos of a taipan, one of the most venomous snakes on Earth. "Lives in Queensland." David's smile faded. "Wait, that's real? Like, you actually have those here?" I explained that yes, we have the top 10 most venomous snakes in the world. We also have funnel-web spiders, box jellyfish, crocodiles, and blue-ringed octopuses, all potentially lethal. David went quiet. Then he asked, "So, when you say don't go walking in the bush alone, you actually mean it?" "Yes, we actually mean it." He spent the entire hike walking in the exact center of the path, checking every branch and rock before moving forward. The other tourists found it hilarious, but I didn't blame him. Americans grow up with bears and mountain lions. Dangerous, sure, but big. Visible. You can see them coming. Our dangers are tiny. A spider the size of your fingernail. A jellyfish you can barely see. That messes with people's threat assessment. Later that week, I had a family from Texas. Parents and 2 kids, around 8 and 10 years old. We were at the beach. The dad wanted to let the kids swim. I told him we couldn't. Stinger season. Box jellyfish in the water. He looked at the beautiful, calm ocean and said, I don't see any jellyfish. I explained you usually don't see them until it's too late. He got annoyed. Look, we didn't fly all the way to Australia to not swim in the ocean. I pointed to the warning signs, showed him photos of box jellyfish stings, explained that the venom can kill a child in minutes. He finally backed down, but he was clearly frustrated. His kids were crying. They didn't understand why the pretty blue water was off limits. The mom asked if there was a pool at the hotel. There was. They spent the afternoon there instead. Later, the dad apologized. He'd Googled box jellyfish. The photos changed his mind real fast. The worst was Jessica, a solo backpacker from California, 22 years old, very confident. She was staying at a hostel in Darwin. One morning, she came to breakfast wearing sandals and shorts, said she was going for a morning jog. I was eating nearby and overheard. I asked where she was planning to run. She said along the waterfront, maybe near some of the parks. I told her to be extremely careful near any water. Saltwater crocodiles, she laughed. Yeah, but like they're rare, right? No, not rare. Darwin has signs everywhere. Crocodiles inhabit this area. They're not a distant possibility. They're an active threat. Jessica seemed skeptical. She said, I grew up in Florida. We have alligators. I know how to handle it. I tried explaining that saltwater crocs are completely different. Bigger, faster, more aggressive. They actively hunt humans. She waved me off and left. She came back 30 minutes later, pale and shaking. She'd been jogging near the water when a local man yelled at her to get away from the edge. He pointed out a croc, massive one, maybe 15 feet long, floating about 10 meters from shore. Just watching. She hadn't even seen it. The man told her that croc had probably been tracking her for a while. She came straight back to the hostel and didn't go near the water again. The thing is, Americans often underestimate Australian wildlife because it doesn't match their mental framework. They expect danger to look dramatic. A roaring bear. A rattlesnake's warning. Our dangers are subtle. A spider in your shoe. A jellyfish you never saw. A croc that looks like a log. It's a different kind of awareness, and it takes time to adjust. Most Americans figure it out eventually. Usually after one good scare. I was working at a car rental agency in Perth when an American couple came in, probably in their 60s, retired, doing a big Australia trip. They wanted to rent a car for the day. I asked where they were planning to go. The husband said, "We're driving to Sydney. Should be back by tonight, right?" I stared at him. Sydney's about 4,000 kilometers away. He looked confused. Kilometers? How far is that in miles? About 2,500 miles, I said. His wife pulled out a map. A tiny map from a tourist brochure. Sydney and Perth were both on it, maybe 6 inches apart. She said, "But look, they're right here. It doesn't look that far." I had to explain that Australia is almost as wide as the United States. Driving from Perth to Sydney takes about 40 hours of straight driving. The husband couldn't believe it. He kept saying, "But it's one country. How can it be that big?" They ended up driving to Fremantle instead, 20 minutes away, much more manageable. A week later, if she could do a day trip to the Great Barrier Reef from Sydney. She was staying in the city and had one free day. I explained that the Great Barrier Reef is in Queensland, over 2,000 kilometers north. She'd need to fly to Cairns, then take a boat. At minimum, a 2-day trip. She was shocked. But I saw it on a map. It's part of Australia, so I thought it was close. Americans seem to forget that Australia is a continent, not just a country, a continent with the same kind of distances as the US. Then there was Marcus, a university student doing a semester in Adelaide. American kid, 19 years old, very enthusiastic. He told me he was planning to visit every major city during his 4-month stay. He listed them: Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Darwin, Hobart. I asked how he planned to travel. He said buses and trains. I had to break the news. Australia doesn't have a comprehensive train network like Europe. Interstate trains exist, but they're expensive and slow. Buses take forever. Flying is usually the only practical option. Marcus was devastated. He'd budgeted for ground transportation. Flights cost way more. He ended up visiting Sydney and Melbourne. Only, he kept complaining that Australia should have better trains. I tried explaining that the population density is completely different. Europe has cities packed close together. Australia has massive empty spaces. Between population centers, it's not economically viable to run frequent trains through thousands of kilometers of desert. He didn't really get it. The absolute best was at a hostel in Brisbane. An American woman, maybe 25, asked the receptionist for directions to the beach. The receptionist asked which beach. The woman said, the beach, the ocean. You know, Brisbane is not a coastal city. It's inland, on a river. The nearest ocean beaches are about an hour away on the Gold Coast, or Sunshine Coast. The woman refused to believe it. She said, but Australia is an island. The beach has to be close. Technically, yes, Australia is an island, but it's a very, very large island. The receptionist eventually printed out a map and showed her. The woman left, looking betrayed, like we'd personally moved the ocean away from her. I also saw this happen in reverse. I was at the airport in Sydney, helping an American family figure out domestic check-in. They were flying to Tasmania. The dad asked how long the flight was. I said about 2 hours. He was surprised. Really? That long? It looks so close on the map. I showed him a proper scale map. Tasmania is 240 kilometers south of the mainland. It's a separate island. He thought it was just a quick hop. His wife asked if they could drive there. I explained that no, you can't drive across the ocean. They'd need to fly or take an overnight ferry. The dad seemed embarrassed. He said, I guess I didn't really look at the map closely. Most Americans don't. They see a map of Australia and assume everything is convenient and compact. It's not. I was working as a waiter in a cafe in Hobart when an American family came in for brunch. Mom, dad, 2 teenage kids. They sat down and immediately started looking around for menus. I walked over and said, hello. The dad waved me off. We're not ready to order yet. I said, no worries, take your time. And I walked away. 5 minutes later, the mom flagged me down, annoyed. Can we get some water? I brought over a jug of tap water and glasses. She looked at it suspiciously. Is this tap water? I said yes. She asked, do you have bottled water? We did, but it cost money. She seemed offended by this. In the US, water is free and constantly refilled. Here, tap water is free. Bottled water is not. Then the dad ordered coffee. I'll have a coffee, black, and keep it coming. I explained that we don't do free refills here. Each coffee is a separate order. He was shocked. Wait, I have to pay for each cup? Yes. Coffee here is made individually. Espresso-based. Not a drip pot you can refill endlessly. He ended up ordering 1 cup and nursing it for an hour. When the bill came, the dad looked at it and asked where he should write the tip. I told him tipping isn't expected here. We pay proper wages, he insisted. I want to tip. You were great. I thanked him but said it wasn't necessary. He left cash on the table anyway, about 20%. The other staff thought it was bizarre. We split it, but it felt awkward. Later that week, I had an American businessman come in alone. He sat down, pulled out his laptop, and started working. After about 90 minutes, I gently asked if he wanted to order anything else. He'd finished his coffee an hour ago. He looked annoyed. I'm still working. I explained that we needed the table. We had a line of people waiting. He couldn't believe it. In the US, I can sit in a cafe all day if I want. I told him that here, during busy periods, we expect turnover. He packed up, muttering about customer service. The worst was a woman from Oregon at a restaurant in Newcastle. She ordered the salmon. When it arrived, she took 1 bite and called me over. This is overcooked. I want a new one. I looked at the salmon. It looked fine to me. I asked what was wrong with it. She said it was too dry. I offered to take it back and check with the chef. The chef tasted it. Perfectly cooked. He sent it back out with a small side of sauce. The woman refused to eat it. She demanded to speak to the manager. The manager came out. The woman explained that in the US, if a customer isn't satisfied, the restaurant replaces the dish. No questions asked. The manager said he'd be happy to replace it, but he'd need to charge her for both meals if there was nothing actually wrong with the first one. She was furious. That's ridiculous. The customer is always right. The manager calmly explained that in Australia, we don't operate on that principle. If food is genuinely poorly prepared, we fix it. If a customer simply doesn't like something, that's fine. They're welcome to order something else. But we charge for both. She ended up paying for the salmon she didn't eat and leaving in a huff. The thing Americans don't realize is that Australian service culture is more egalitarian. Servers aren't subservient. They're doing a job, and they expect respect. The customer is always right mentality doesn't exist here. If you're rude, staff will push back. If you're demanding, they'll tell you no. It's not considered bad service. It's considered normal boundaries. Americans used to the US service model find this jarring. They interpret it as rudeness. It's not. It's just a different cultural framework. I also noticed this with retail. I was shopping in Melbourne once and overheard an American tourist arguing with a store clerk. The tourist wanted to return a shirt she'd bought 2 days earlier. No receipt. She'd worn it once and decided she didn't like it. The clerk said no. Store policy requires a receipt, and items must be unworn. The tourist kept saying, "In America, I can return anything within 30 days." The clerk just shrugged. This isn't America. The tourist left angry, but the clerk didn't budge. That's the difference. Australian workers don't bend over backward to please difficult customers. They follow policy and move on. I was working at a currency exchange in Sydney when an American man came in to exchange money. He was probably in his late 50s, wearing a polo shirt and cargo shorts. Classic tourist. He handed me $500 USD and asked for Australian dollars. I processed it and gave him $775 AUD. He looked at the money and frowned. "This doesn't look right." I asked what was wrong. He said, "This money looks fake. It's plastic." I explained that yes, Australian currency is polymer. It's waterproof, more durable, harder to counterfeit. He held up a note to the light, squinting. "But money is supposed to be paper. This feels wrong." I showed him the security features, the clear window, the embossing. He still seemed suspicious. Finally, he asked, "Will stores actually accept this?" I assured him that yes, it's legal currency. He left, but he kept examining the notes like they might disappear. That interaction stuck with me because it captured something essential. Americans arrive in Australia expecting familiarity, English language, Western culture, similar values. And on the surface, those things are true, but the details are different. The wildlife is different. The distances are different. The service culture is different. Even the money feels different. And those differences add up. They create friction, confusion, sometimes frustration. The Americans who adapt quickly are the ones who accept that different doesn't mean wrong. They ask questions. They observe. They adjust. The ones who struggle are the ones who expect Australia to work like America with a funny accent. It doesn't. It's its own place, with its own logic and its own way of doing things. I've seen Americans figure out the public transport system in Melbourne, navigate the coffee culture, learn to check for crocs before swimming, and embrace the no-tipping norm. I've also seen Americans argue with baristas, ignore wildlife warnings, underestimate distances, and demand American-style service. The difference isn't intelligence, it's flexibility. It's the willingness to step outside your own framework and accept that maybe, just maybe, your way isn't the only way. And these stories? They never stop coming. Every week, new tourists arrive. New misunderstandings happen. New moments of confusion and surprise. Australia keeps exposing the gaps in American assumptions. And honestly, it's fascinating to watch, because in those moments, you see someone's worldview crack open just a little. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you see them grow.